Hello and welcome to Northwest Knitting. My name is Kathy and I live in Eugene, Oregon. If you've come before, welcome back, and if you're new, thanks so much for checking out what I'm doing here. I did a little bit of traveling since my last podcast, so I got to go to a couple new yarn stores and an old one to me that I love and still do. Went down to California and back. So I feel like I'm just easing into being at home again. So I'm going to just jump right in. Oh, I should say you can find me on Ravelry as Northwest Knitting and on Instagram as Northwest Knitting. So check me out in those places too. I'll have show notes here down below, and so if you haven't ever looked at show notes, you click on show more and then it'll have a list of all the Ravelry sites to the patterns and the names and yarns and all the other things that I mention. So, and if I don't mention something, feel free to just comment and ask a question and I'll be sure to get back to you. So anyway, I'm going to just jump right into my knitting. What I'm wearing is the Felix Cardigan by Amy Christoffers, also known as Savory Knitting, I think. Savory Knits or Savory Knitting. And this is my, I've done 4 of her patterns and really enjoyed all of them. The first one was in my first episode, and it's the Lunenburg pullover. But I did one Felix cardigan, which is what I'm wearing, and also the Felix pullover, and then an older pattern of hers called Moxie. And I really urge you to check them out. Anyway, so the Felix cardigan is a very popular pattern. Many people have done it, and it's a worsted weight pattern that's done on at a looser gauge. I'm pretty sure she recommends maybe size 9 needles or 10s, and I think I did 8. So I went down a size. It makes a very loose drapey fabric, and particularly with the yarn that I chose. So for me, in a lot of ways, this was me using up yarn I didn't know what to do with. I had found this yarn at Black Sheep Gathering, which is a fiber festival that's in this area, usually once a year. I haven't gone for 2 years because of COVID, and then it turns out this year I have a conflict. So sadly I can't go, which I find very distressing. It was really hard to choose, but anyway, you just can't go to everything, can you? So this yarn is 100% alpaca, and it was Montana Fiberworks, distinctly 100% alpaca. And she had, what gorgeous, gorgeous colors. I haven't seen the yarn since, and I should check it out. I don't think I've seen it on the internet anywhere either, but she had a wonderful, fun vest pattern that took 900 yards. So I bought 900 yards to do the vest. But then when I looked it up on Ravelry, I just wasn't so sure about it. No one else had knit it, and it was designed to do, you could wear it like 5 different ways or something like that. And I wasn't so sure about it. And then in the meantime, I learned about alpaca and how much it stretches. So here I was with 900 yards of this beautiful color, but I wasn't sure what to do with it. I just didn't, I don't think 100% alpaca would be great for a sweater, unless maybe you knit it very, very tightly or wanted it very loose and drapey. It would be great for shawl though. But I found a solution at my local yarn store. I think they were having a sale, and then this ultimately wasn't on sale, but you know how it is. So it's a mohair You can see just glorious color. And it is Jorstad Creek, Isle of Skye, Espresso Bean color. It's lace weight mohair silk. And the alpaca was sport weight. Well, when I put them together, I was able to make gauge for the Felix Cardigan, which is a pretty loose gauge. And I just think it's magical how these two colors combine. You know, I have never yet planned a sweater ahead of time where I bought 2 yarns to make a sweater with mohair. It's just so expensive to do that. But the 2 times I've done it, both for this and my the Ultimate Lazy Cardigan, which I talked about in episode 2, in both of those cases, the mohair was a problem solver. I wasn't sure, or I didn't really think the yarn I had in my stash was going to be good to make a garment. But when it was mixed with the mohair, it just turned into a really wonderful piece. So for me, this is the most luxurious piece I own. I will say, though, that because this is a worsted weight pattern, I didn't come close to using the 900 yards of the alpaca, and this is 450 yards in a skein. I had 2 skeins, and I still have a lot left of the mohair, and I made a hat out of this wonderful fabric. I made a beret. I'll try and remember to show it to you sometime. And I still have quite a bit left. So I imagine this possibly going into a shawl, but I would want to leave quite a bit in case I need to mend the sweater at some point. So let me stand up and show you. First of all, it's just got the great decreases, and they're not very hard to do. If you're new to this kind of thing, it's you're just decreasing along here, and the eyelets are a way to accomplish the decreasing. So it's pretty clever and really nifty. And you can see the color is just great. So then going backwards, you can see it's just got a real, very drapey feel to it. I probably made it shorter than some of the cardigans I do, but it's a kind of sweater I could reach for. I wear it in the winter, but I also reach for it a lot in the summer because it's just so soft and just real comfortable on anything, really. So I haven't had any, it hasn't, oh, and I should say I did do this quite a while ago. I did it in, I think I started it in April of 2020 when things were very, very gloomy for most of us here. And I decided that I wasn't going to just save fancy yarn in my wool pantry, but I would put the pantry into the wool pantry concept and move things along. And also, I think I was feeling like there's no time like the present for just about everything. So anyway, it was kind of a good experience. It was good to realize, okay, I do deserve something luxurious, and it feels wonderful, and I'm absolutely thrilled to have used up most of that yarn that I got at Black Sheep Gathering so many years ago. So anyway, this I really highly recommend the project, and it's also a great, the Felix pullover is also a great one. Okay, I'm going to change what I'm wearing and put the new other thing. It just didn't show those eyelets, so I will pause just for a little bit. Okay, well, for you that was no time at all, so that's nice. When I actually did this podcast a couple days ago, and it was a lot warmer, so I was thinking about summer knits, which is why I wanted to show you this. This is also not a new pattern, a new project. I did this, I think I finished it maybe in August of last year. And I wanted to talk to you about it because it's the striped sweater by Andrea Mowry, and I am almost finished with a very woolly version of it, but I knit them so differently and the yarns are so different that I thought it was worth comparing just how versatile the pattern is and how ease makes a huge difference. So this one I knit out of a yarn called Queensland United, and it is 55% lamb's wool and 45% cotton. It's organic, and it's I believe it's GOTS certified, which I can't read because I don't have my glasses right now, but my understanding was that this is not superwash, but on the label it says soft machine washable blend of lamb's wool and cotton. So well, first of all, I do not, even if I got a superwash, made something out of superwash, I don't wash it in the washing machine because I labored over this thing. So, but I could imagine doing it, like putting it in a little garment bag. And if anybody knows where to get some of the smaller garment bags, I'd really appreciate it, because I'd like to send them, when I give a baby gift, it would be nice to provide it with a garment bag. But anyway, I'm not probably inclined to throw this in the wash, and I haven't yet. So let me tell you about it. As you can see, I used 1, 2, 3, 4 colors, right? Yeah. I got this yarn on sale maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and I don't know what, I think I was imagining doing color work with it, and I did do color work with it. I made a sweater designed by Boyland Knit Works. I did the Cipolla sweater, and I think that's how you say it, I'm not sure. And I've been very happy with the yarn in terms of wear. I actually wore this quite a bit at the end of the summer, and then I just wore it when I was down in California just now because it was almost, it was in the very high 70s there, and it felt like summer had fully arrived. Anyway, so I had this yarn and I wasn't sure what to do with it, and I liked the idea of a summer top, but I hadn't knit that many, when I bought the yarn, I hadn't knit that many sweaters. So anyway, when I saw the striped sweater, I thought, wow, that might be the way to go. So I think that the yarn is a much better choice for this sweater than it was for the Cipolla. I wish I had done that in a woolly fabric because of all the stranded work, and it was my first stranded project. So personally, I wouldn't advise that you try stranded work with anything but wool to start out with. And then once you've tried it, you can you can see how you feel about it. But anyway, working with this, it has a very dry feeling, a very cottony feeling. So when you could easily believe that this is 100% cotton, I think, or maybe with some little interesting thing in it, but it does not feel woolly at all. It feels, to me, it feels very much like cotton, and that creates some of the same issues of every plant fiber. For me, it's a little frustrating to work with because it just shows so many defects, most of which come out when you block it. But I just feel like my mistakes are so visible, maybe because maybe I'm too erratic as a knitter, and so this just makes it worse. Whereas with wool, I feel like wool just softens over your mistakes a lot more. So anyway, I've been really, really happy with this yarn, and I will use it again for a summer sweater. So as you can see, I made it super loose. You know, I made it, I probably went I think my gauge was a little funny, so I went 4 sizes up, which is crazy. Anyway, so you can see I overdid it once again. I'm getting better though, but you can see it. I just probably didn't, I could have gone down at least 1 size. But I will say that the advantage is that it's really great in, you can see a little there. It's really great in the summer. It's just fantastic. And I can wear this even in the hottest days, and even though it's half wool, it's just very pleasant to wear. So I'm imagining myself making another, probably not another stripes, because I have the other one pending, and 2 might be enough. Too many patterns, too little time. But I definitely will make a pattern, a little top this summer out of another color of this one. I found a nice blue color, and if I can get enough of it, I'll go ahead and use that for a summer top. So anyway, if you have any suggestions of other yarns that you're really crazy about for summer, then please comment below, because that's what I'm looking for. One thing about this yarn, you can see, it looks woolly, doesn't it? It's nice. One thing about this yarn is it is affordable. I think you can get it. I got mine on sale, but I think you can get it right now for about, even if you pay full price, I'm pretty sure it's only $8 for a skein, and there's 251 yards in the skein. So you can see that for a summer top, this is very, very affordable. So, and they say it's machine washable. They do not have, oh wait, let's see. They say washable, but don't put it in the dryer. So I could actually give it a try, and maybe it wouldn't hurt if the shrinkage went this way. I don't know. I'm always worried it'll go that way. So I don't know. Anyway, those are both my tops, and let me see what I can tell you next. Okay, so this one, I'm making my other striped sweater that I'm working on. I'm so close to the end. I actually finished it, put it on. I decided it was still a little clingy in the hips, so I've pulled out the bottom and I'm reworking it. And when moments like that happen, I will go back to it. I love the sweater, but I needed to pause for a moment. So I thought my little granddaughter needed a little something. So this might be a little too big for her, but this is a vest. You see? Cute little vest here. So this was done, this was a pattern called Arthur, and it's by Lisa Chemery, and she's Frogginette Knits, I think. It's Frogginette. And I'll put the link below, and she has a lot of really cute patterns for kids. I did a cardigan for at one point of hers. She has a number of them that use some of the Tolkien names or references to the Tolkien stories, the Hobbit stories. She has a vest with pocketses, and she has a number of really adorable sort of little dresses or very feminine sweaters, and just a huge range, really. So I'm hoping to do another one soon for my granddaughter in not that one. Nope, I don't have it. Oh, I know. Well, not in this color probably, but this is Ultra Wool, which is a superwash, and you can tumble dry. You can not only wash it, but tumble dry low. And it was recommended to me when I went down to the Webster's, which is a yarn store in Ashland, where they have the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. And I've been going there for to the Shakespeare Festival and also to the Webster's for years. And I think there might be some new ownership or something has changed. It always was a wonderful, wonderful store, but somehow now it's just even brighter and shinier, and they have yarns that I really am anxious and happy to see. They have Jamieson and Smith, a huge section of wall with all the colors. They have Rowan Felted Tweed, Brooklyn Tweed. They have, I have never bought it because it just seems too expensive, but I'd love to try the Shabooey knits. They had Labiche Bouche yarns, Fiber Company. It's just a great store. So I had a lot of fun in there, and they recommended that Ultra Wool, which was probably the least exotic of all the yarns they had. I did get some other stuff too, but it's nice to get a good recommendation for baby knits. So what I used for this little guy here was, I think I mentioned it as a whip at some point. It's the Scheepjes Stonewash, and here are the colors I used. So you can see they have a lot of white in there. It's like a white cotton core almost. And sometimes when knitting with them, you can occasionally pick up a ply. But anyway, it makes a really nice yarn, and it seems to be a yarn that my granddaughter and her parents she wore I did a sweater for her. I did the Dog Star sweater by Tin Can Knits this winter, and she did seem to wear it a lot, which is always really feels great. With this one, I had this is a very simple bottom-up pattern. You don't have to do any decreasing for the color work. For some reason, I don't know if it was the yarn or what, or maybe because I used wooden needles for this, and I wouldn't recommend it. It's just that my other needles that I needed for gauge were in use. I seem to have a very small range that I'm using for my for needles. But anyway, so I used some bamboo needles, and I found that my color work was just bizarrely uneven, and I just normally, I've done quite a bit of color work, and I wouldn't claim to be the world's expert, but I usually can feel like I get a really nice gauge. But again, I would almost always use wool, and not, this is something like, this is 78% cotton, and the rest is acrylic, and it just feels like cotton. I think most people wouldn't know that it has, I think the inexperienced person would not expect that it had any acrylic in it at all. But anyway, I did find that it was hard to get a nice smooth fabric with the color work, but then as soon as I was on the straightaway in this little bit here, then it smoothed out. I also had a heck of a time I picked up way fewer stitches than the designer recommended, and I still had it, I still had this neck pulling out, but I haven't blocked it yet. Less so for the armholes, but I was scared of making the neck too tight. And I had never done Jenny's super stretchy bind off before, so I did it. It was recommended for this, and I did it, and that was sure a handy little thing to learn. So was there anything else I learned? I think that was it. It's a pretty straightforward pattern. Anyway, so, and the yarn is, I think, much as I'd love to just not knit with acrylic, I think it's just very hard to give a gift to someone who just had a new baby and say, please dry flat. So I don't know about you, but I don't have it in me to do that. We'll see. Okay, I'm going to pause one more time because I have a whole other thing I want to talk about. We're going to talk about socks next. Okay, so a couple episodes ago, I talked to you about a pattern I was working on, and it's called the Basic Sock Integrated Heel, and it's out by Ailbíona McLochlainn, and I'm pronouncing her name the way that Melissa on Knitting the Stash pronounces it, and she's collaborated with Ailbíona, but to me it looks like it would be Ailbíona, but I don't think that's it. So it's really a gorgeous name, and I wish I felt more confident in pronouncing it. So I've made one of this sock, the Basic Sock Integrated Heel, and I used very bright yarn, which I'm having second thoughts about, but I want to show you the so what's interesting about this is, as you can see, there's no heel and gusset, and you don't, this is the flap right here, down here. Okay, so you'll see it on this side. And one of the nice things about it, it's a very, very easy pattern. So one of the nice things about it is that if you want to do stripes, you can see it interferes very, very little with the stripes. When I got to this gold, there's this little thin line here. So it's a very interesting pattern. I did not have gauge. I have a very hard time knitting super tight for some reason. I used to be a very tight knitter when I started, but then I switched to Continental and my knitting has really loosened up quite a bit. So I was a little lower than gauge, but the sock fits perfectly and it fits pretty well. It's a little bit, I have a very high instep. I don't know. I'm still learning about socks. I should say, I should have prefaced all of this by saying I'm not much of a sock knitter. I have knit maybe, I don't know, 6 or 7 pairs of socks, and I have had a number of them have fit. Some I've made too big, some I've made too little. I have never had a sock where the fit and the yarn were both exactly what I want. So I'm still experimenting and trying to find what I really want. Partly, some of the yarns that if I knit them on a size, if they're the ordinary, sock weight yarn, they're thinner. I don't know. I might like them a little thicker. Now, my ready-made commercial socks that I have quite a few that I do really love, actually. One of my favorite brands is Darn Tough. And I used also have over the years gotten a lot of Smart Wool, and I like that one quite a bit. The colors were great, and they do have wool in them, and so I really do like those. Some of those didn't wear very well, although I have some new ones that I got at Christmas that I think they have a thicker bottom and they'll last longer. Anyway, I want to have a sock that feels really comfortable to me, and some of the sock yarns I have felt like they're, some of them have flattened down and I don't know, I just have had mixed results. So I have not done I am an inexperienced sock knitter. So anyway, these seem to fit perfectly, and I want to show you one thing because I realized that on the blocker you can't see it, but this is the heel. That's what the heel looks like. So isn't that interesting? It's really neat. So anyway, I recommend the pattern. I'm trying all kinds of patterns. I might return to this one, especially if I were doing the stripy sock. And also the designers, she has really some interesting patterns, and she's the one who designed the Ultimate Lazy Cardigan that I talk about in episode 2, which is such a great cardigan. So definitely check her out. Anyway, on the topic of socks though, I just wanted to mention something that I started thinking about maybe a year or so ago, and that's part of what prompted me to start this podcast, because I really feel that over the years my views of what yarn I like has changed so much. And I suspect it will change even more in the coming years. I'll know more information. I'm starting to learn a little bit more about specific breeds of sheep and how different one yarn can be from another. And I'm also very, very concerned about environmental problems. And so I'm looking more for, I'm exploring, and I felt like this would be a good way to do it and also share with people what my journey in all of this. Anyway, I want to back up and tell you a brief story, which is that I'm a big fan of an author called Barbara Kingsolver. I'm sure many of you have heard of her, hopefully. She's written quite a number of novels, some of my favorites. And one of the books that she wrote was a nonfiction book called Animal Vegetable Miracle. And she wrote this, maybe 15 or 18 years, maybe 15, 16 years ago, I think. And what the story is about is she and her husband moved from their home in Arizona with their 2 daughters and to some family property that they had in, it's either, I don't know if it's Kentucky or Tennessee, and they decided to move back there and to grow their own food and have some of their own animals. And they planned to, for a year, try to eat food that was local to them, either food that they raised or food that they could obtain locally or at least regionally. And so it's quite an undertaking. They each had a few foods one food that they could use. I think chocolate and coffee were involved there. But if you think about where your food is from, you will realize that this was an amazing undertaking. And it's a very interesting story. They were not, I think, brand new gardeners. They might have been a little new to some of the animal rearing, but it's a great story. Their daughter was a teenager at the time. Their oldest daughter was a teenager at the time, and she wrote recipes. So the book each chapter has recipes, and Barbara Kingsolver's husband, Stephen Hops, is a scientist, and he would write pieces about science and the environment. And anyway, it's a great story. What does this have to do with yarn, you might wonder? Well, when last year I came across an essay that Kingsolver had written for Orion magazine a few years ago. And the article, which I had never seen when it came out, I think it came out like 2013, she had written a whole beautiful essay about knitting. Turns out she's an avid knitter, like many other interesting people, like Madeleine Albright, I think, and Judge Jackson, who's up for confirmation for the Supreme Court. Anyway, she is a knitter, and it turned out that in the course of reading this article, I learned that she has Icelandic sheep, and quite a herd, like 70 or something. So that's a lot of sheep to have. And it started me thinking about it. It brought me back to her book. I went back to her book and read it again, and I started reading it from the perspective of thinking about my own diet, but more importantly, the yarn diet and what I am, where I'm getting my yarn. So, you know, I love trying out all the different yarns from around the world. Right now I'm knitting with Swedish yarn, a combination of Swedish and Norwegian yarn, which I'm loving. And I really enjoy getting yarn. If you buy yarn in this country, it has probably gone across the country a couple times, or halfway across and back and halfway across and back. I mean, commercially produced yarn is just not going to be in your neighborhood usually. Even Brooklyn tweed, which is, don't bump the camera, is beautifully made in the United States. So at least it's not being shipped to me across the planet. Still, it's, you know, the fleece is from Wyoming. I think it goes to Maine to be processed and to Pennsylvania to be dyed. They have it all in their label there, and then it probably goes back to Portland to be packaged and so forth. So anyway, it started me thinking that wouldn't it be good if I could at least try to have some of the yarn I use be local to me, locally grown to me. And it so happened that I found some at a yarn store. I'm not going to tell you about, I found some at a farmer's market about a year ago. And I'll tell you about that yarn at some point. But the bigger place is a little closer to me and producing more yarn, is a yarn store called Ewethful Fiber Farm and Mill. And the owner, Kim, has a small mill in an old wooden building in Halsey, Oregon, which is about 30 minutes away from me. So that's pretty darn local, I think. And I've gone to her open shop days several times. And what she's doing is she has, I think, a small head of Shetland sheep, but she is getting a lot of, that wouldn't be enough probably for to do what she wants to do. And she's also getting fleece from other sheep growers in Oregon. And also mohair is apparently easily grown, according to Kim, in Oregon. And she will blend these up. And one of the things that she's done recently that I want to tell you about is she's doing a yarn that she calls it her Prineville base. So she must get the wool from Prineville. And it's a heavy fingering yarn. It's border Leicester wool mixed with mohair, and she's selling yarn kits. So her kits, the original kit as designed, is in this natural color here. And you see how pretty that is, all that mohair there. And then she pairs a big chunk of the natural color with a smaller bit of a mostly jewel tones. But she'll also, if you ask, she will also, if she can, she will dye the yarn in bigger amounts in a solid color. So I actually got 500 yards of this, and this is one of my favorite colors. And actually I got this 500 yards and I thought, ooh, I could get another 500 yards and make a sweater. But no, I am going to make socks. So the theory is that the mohair is strong and durable, and it's also creates a nice luster. And the idea is that it is replacing nylon in this sock yarn. So I'm going to try this out, and I'm hoping that by using some non-superwash yarn and a good pattern, that I will start being a sock knitter, or at least enjoy making or wearing a pair of socks that I've made myself. So anyway, I highly recommend that you, if you haven't already, look around and see if you can find some fiber being made in your area. And even if we don't only knit with locally produced yarns, I think they're all over the country actually, and it would be one small step to doing better with reducing our use of plastics. So anyway, one last look at this baby. Oh, it is just gorgeous. She also had like a teal and a reddish color, and I forget some of the other colors, but this one that I got is Fall Shadows. So I'll put the link to her shop, and also you should check out her podcast. She talks a lot about her farm and her animals, in addition to what yarns she's working on. So, okay, I think that is about it. I have one last thing I wanted to talk about, which is I went up to visit my daughter in Portland. Is there anything else here? Oh, one more thing. The Ewethful Fiber Farms, the yarn that I'm talking about, this sock yarn, is mentioned in Making Stories, the brand new edition of Making Stories. And I'm hoping to get a hold of that. I think it just came out, and there's some neat patterns in there, and I think at least 2 or more sock patterns, and one of them used Kim's yarn. So check that out if you get a hold of that magazine. See if you can find Kim's mention of Kim's yarn. And the other okay, so I went to Portland, visited my daughter, and there's a newish yarn store within walking distance of her house, and it's called Ritual Dyes. And this store is it's a small store, but it's just beautifully curated. Unlike the Webster down in Ashland, where you can find many kinds of yarn, just so many kinds, and it's a big store. Ritual Dyes is a small, very carefully curated yarn store. They make their own, they have their own yarn, and they have superwash and non-superwash. It's I think it's made specially for them, and it's very thoughtfully produced. And in addition, they have some amounts of beautiful yarns, particularly quite a lot of the L'Ailbíona May. So I got to see the Corey worsted and some of the other L'Ailbíona May yarns, including Mondum, which I hadn't actually seen before, and some other yarn, quite a number of other yarns. But it's not a high volume store for sure. But it is so beautiful and well worth your time if you are in Portland. And both Ritual Dyes and the Websters have very nice websites, so definitely check it out. Especially, I think it would be worth checking their own dyes, their own yarns that they make. They do some beautiful dyeing. So one of the things they have, though, in addition to the yarn, is they have a small section of fabric and some patterns. So I have been looking for a long time for, I wanted to get this So Liberated Hinterland dress pattern, and I was happy to find it where it came with the full pattern pieces all printed out, because I'm an old lady. I'm used to patterns where you get the pattern pieces and I don't want to go print them out. Okay, I won't rule it out, but I'd rather get them in the pattern. And so anyway, here's the dress right here. And I'd like to make this this cap sleeve one here. Anyway, and I'm hoping to do it in this. So this has been in my stash forever. I got it for quilting many years ago, and I probably told a story where I reduced all of my fabric stash, and I don't ever want to do that again with a stash, so I have to keep using my yarn so it doesn't become what my fabric stash was. But what I had with my fabric stash was way too many small amounts of fat quarters, and I didn't have enough of the big lengths of fabric. So what happened is this last year I gave away 2 big boxes of fabric, and then I kept the small amount that's up there, and there are just a very, very few that are big enough to make a dress. Some might make a top, but anyway, it does remind me of yarn, because part of my problem with yarn for quite a while was that I would go to a yarn store, I'd see some yarn I loved, and I'd buy 1 or 2 skeins of it. And then when I got into making garments, I started realizing that that was just not the way to do it. So now I most of the time, unless I have a very specific purpose for the yarn, I will buy a sweater's quantity. So anyway, my experience down in California made me realize that summer is on the way. I fear that we will have another very, very hot summer, and so I am looking for solutions. So this, and then also finding some other fabric, some other yarns to make summer tops. So if you have any ideas for that, mention it down below, and hopefully next time I'll have some more ideas myself. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Please like and subscribe if you can, and give me a comment, and I look forward to seeing you very soon. Bye.